Kia ora e te whānau. So, a little bit excited. Look at my stash. So today I'm going to show you how to make some of these pretty little guys. And obviously we're not going to make them all. I'm going to show you how to do them though. Those. Some slightly larger ones. And these little guys. So these are based off the leaf ones, off some gel prints that I did. So I have scanned them and shrinkened them and I have turned them into teeny tiny little charms. And if you can hear a noise in the background, don't worry, that's just my printer working its little heart out to print what we're going to need. And then you can just take whichever one you want whenever you're ready. And they just finish off a little eyelet so well. Oh, and I should show you the back of them as well. Come on, little guy, get off there. I'm making it look way harder than it is. These are actually really helpful. So then, and you could put a little piece of lace behind them as well, but I'm just going to quickly pop them on here so that you can see how cute they look. There you go, look at that. Cute. And now all the backs of them I have spray painted with my hammered metal Rust-Oleum. So they all look like that, and I will pop the link down below for where I did some other labels with that same spray paint, and then you'll be able to get the spray paint, you'll know what it is, and if you do want to do the backs like that you can. Alternatively, you could just double side it, that's an option as well. So this is the printable that I have created, and that will be in the description below as well. And I will, because it's printed on the wrong paper, I recommend for this little project that we're going to do that you print it onto gloss photo paper. This might work perfectly fine, I'm not sure, but I do know that through my inkjet, if I've printed it on gloss photo paper, I can put resin on it, I can put the nail polish on it, and the ink doesn't run, it doesn't affect the ink whatsoever. And the resin, if you're using resin, quite often it darkens these images because and I imagine the nail polish would do the same. The liquid kind of sinks into the paper, whereas with the gloss paper it sits right on the surface and you get amazing clear little results. So let's get going. Okay, so let me just show you why paper matters. So this guy here, this is on the gloss, as you can see, photo paper. This is the one I did just on the card. Can you see? Huge difference if I hold those next to each other. So ink will affect the print differently. I'll also show you a couple of these. So this is from the pack. This is just on heavier cardstock, which they print beautifully. But if I show you these examples, this is the same background paper in the pack that is behind this one here, but this one has been printed on matte photo paper. So it is worth, I never ever print on the reams you can buy that are cheap as chips. You can get a stack this high for about $10. I never bother printing on that. I think I'm wasting my printer ink by doing that, because you can see the difference there, even the colors change. So I highly recommend, if you want to make a beautiful journal, to splash out on some decent paper. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, so what we're going to need now, me that I use a lot of this matte board. I use it for my covers, I use it for some of my journaling cards to back them if I want them to be a bit more substantial. This one I would say is only about 2mm thick, and as I've told you before, drop down to your photo gallery, local photo gallery, give them a call, say, hey, I was just wondering, do you have any matte board scraps that I might be able to have for some craft projects? And usually they're more than happy to give it to you. You're going to need plain old nail polish, because although I did do some in resin, it is the exact same process, but it's the resining process where you have to use the LED lamp, etc. Just some glue, that's glue, GLOO, which I buy, but it is very similar to Helmer's, very similar to Beacon 3-in-1, very similar to Fabri-Tac. And you will need some scissors. Now I'll just show you the difference between, and they're not the same, so I can't really show you, but the leaves have been done in resin and the labels have all been done in nail polish. And I honestly don't think there is that much of a difference. I think they both came out beautifully, and the nail polish is a lot less of a hassle. This is not special nail polish. This is from my local $2 shop. So I haven't spent much money on it at all. And we'll need a pair of scissors obviously as well. So I am just going to cut out one of these and a label, just so that we do two. Okay, so I'm not going to leave you here watching me cut out. I will cut this and I will come back. Okay, so we have our two that we are going to be doing for the example, and honestly I cut out the whole section, stuck that to board and then cut them all out, but obviously I'm just not doing a whole lot this time around. You just need to see the process, so you don't have to cut them out individually first, although depending on what you're using, if you don't have matte board, there is an option that you could just use 3 or 4 layers of cardboard stuck together. That would give you a bit more of a substantial thickness. You might be using chipboard, so in that case, and if you're not using the exact same supplies as I am, just go with your gut. You might need to use a craft knife to cut around. The scissors might not work. You might have already cut them through a die cut to get the little squares of cardboard that you've stuck together. Just you do you. Do whatever works. I don't use a craft knife because it's fiddly, and I found that the charms that you just saw cut out with scissors were perfectly fine. So I do leave that to dry just for a couple of minutes so that it's not slipping around on the surface when I cut it. So I'll pop back in a second. Okay, so they should be dry. I've only left them for a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to recut them. See, my scissors work perfectly fine for this. You will obviously need a sharp pair of scissors. Sometimes it slightly bends the card, but I'm not too worried about it. I was perfectly happy with how the charms came out. So can you imagine how long this would have just taken me if I was using a craft knife? Trying to line that up perfectly, and oh, no thank you. Okay, so the next step, this is where I just trim the corners, and no, this is not going to fit into my trusty little corner punch, unfortunately. So all I do is with the labels, I just chop a corner off, and I actually make them more of a diagonal cut. So that's that one done. With these ones, I just curve my scissors just a little bit. That one slipped off. I'll show you hopefully on this one as I'm going around. And no, they're not going to be perfect, but again, I don't mind. I don't think anybody will notice. Okay, so we do want to punch our hole in it at this point. And you'll notice most of the labels the words have been pushed down, and that is so that when you punch a hole, you don't lose too much, well, you don't lose any of the text. And I have just been using the little hole punch hole on my crocodile, and I'm punching quite close to the top and as central as I can, but I'm just doing that by eye. Okay, and then I do want to ink it first, so I'll just grab my ink and I'll pop back. Now, if the nail polish hits these edges, you're not going to be able to ink over the nail polish. It will keep rubbing off. So I do put a little bit to cover all of that white. The spray painting part, and I'll link the video in for that, because I use the same method where I've used the masking tape sticky side up and I've just stuck them all down so that they're all sitting there like that, and then I've sprayed over them. That was my last step. You could do it beforehand. I didn't, and I thought, well, am I going to get any spray paint on the front, and am I going to be able to cover the backs properly? And I could, perfectly fine, and I didn't get any on the front, so I was happy with how that came out. And then simple, grab your nail polish. You can use a pair of tweezers to hold it if you want, and I do 2 coats. The first coat wasn't as glossy or as thick as the resin, but by the time I had 2 coats of the nail polish, I noticed that it looked very, very similar to the resin, but it did not include as much faffing around with the LED lamp. So this little guy here could be quite helpful to show you the example once I've done the 2 coats next to the resin ones, so that you can see the difference, well, if you can see a difference between using the nail polish and the resin. I can, but it's really minute. You just need to make sure you've got a really good coat and shine it in the light so that you can see where you've been and where you've covered. But you can see that the photo paper and the ink on the photo paper isn't having any effect whatsoever with that nail polish. Okay, so I'll leave those to dry. I'll do a second coat exactly the same, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've only let those dry for about half an hour, but they are touch dry, they're not sticky. I would leave them overnight, because you never know whether they're going to stick to each other or not, just to be safe. I would then go and use the masking tape technique, stick them to the masking tape and spray paint the backs. You wouldn't need to do that though if you double side them. So, and then I just stick a bulb pin on them. Lesson learned, I did a little experiment while I was waiting for those guys to dry. That was one of the little journaling cards that was on just the inkjet on a matte card, and it definitely does run with the nail polish. So I highly recommend only using the gloss photo paper. And then I just combined a few little bits and pieces to show you the result and how nicely they sit together. That one there is just the journaling card. I've just backed them all into a little bit of manila folder, and I've just put a slip punch through there, some olive ribbon and 2 rivets. This guy, I just used some old wool, and I popped a eyelet in the hole and popped one of the little charms on with a bulb pin. That guy, just one of the little tags there. Again, all backed with manila folder, a little bit of lace on the back, eyelet through there, and just a bulb pin through it. This one, I just cut a couple of little hole protectors, if that's what they're called, put a little thin piece of ribbon through there, added a little bit of lace behind that charm. That one again, just slit hole punch with a little bit of chiffon ribbon. And that one I just left as is, put an eyelet through it and a little bit of thin ribbon, again all backed with manila folder. So there you go. That did, I would say, take me a few hours to make all of those, but I will be good for a while because that is a lot of charms. And you will notice when you print the pack, if you print it borderless, I know on my printer I would risk cutting them off. So these charms are a little bit, only a tiny bit, but a little bit smaller than the ones that I've made, only by a couple of mils. And then those ones are just a little bit smaller as well. But I hope you give them a go. If you don't get these, I'm sure you've got other labels, other little pictures and bits and pieces that you can do the same thing with. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to make a whole heap of gorgeous little charms. And not only can you add them to the sides of page just as they are, like I showed you in the beginning, but you can add them and make little clusters with tags and things. Alright my lovelies, well thank you for staying till the end if you're still with me, and until next time, love you guys heaps. Mā te wā.